Today we're going to talk about our attitudes. And in my opinion, our attitudes are going to be the most important thing to accomplishing our dreams and goals. The image that you're seeing on the screen, A Rendezvous with Destiny, is a book written by James Jans, a very successful businessman up in Canada. He has business all over the world, and in this book he's talking about what it's going to take for each and every one of us to succeed in life. If we cannot manage our own attitudes, it's going to be real hard for us to manage anything else. A lot of time our attitudes are a reflection of our expectations. If our attitudes are poor, our expectations are going to be very low. On the flip side, if our attitudes are good or great, our expectations are going to be high. It reminds me of a story I read years ago about a gentleman who was approaching the age of 30. And he felt that life hadn't been treating him fairly up to that point. And so he saw that the carnival was coming to town, and he felt like, well, I'm going to go release some stress, have some fun, take the edge off a little bit. And so as he's walking around, he saw a sign that said Fortune's Told, $10. So he went in, paid the lady his $10, and she told him his fortune. And she told him, you're going to be broke and busted until age 45. He got out of the chair and started to walk towards the door, head hung low, and a light bulb went off in his head. And he turned around and he went back to the lady. He said, well, you said until age 45. What's going to happen at age 45? She said, by then you'll be used to it. So we don't want to get used to low expectations. And in order to do that, we're going to have to improve our attitudes. A lot of people go through life with an attitude that somebody else owes them something. That can be the family. They can believe their friends, their boss, or the government owes them something. You know, that's an attitude of dependency. And then you have those folks on the other side who have an attitude of accomplishment and do not expect or wait on others to take care of them. Have you ever noticed that the people with poor attitudes are never openly welcomed by others? Do you know anyone who arises every day with a poor attitude, or they woke up on the wrong side of the bed? Are you that person? If you don't know that person, it might be you. You might be the person nobody else wants to be around. Life conditions us to be negative. As toddlers, we are told no so much that we are surprised to hear the word yes. As we attend school, we are ridiculed for getting bad grades. In the workplace, we are released if we don't meet expectations. If we play sports, our teammates and coaches ridicule us for making a bad play. And for those of you who played sports, especially in the areas of football, basketball, and baseball, and possibly track, your coaches probably gave you some colorful language. So how can we be positive when our life experiences condition us to be negative by default? We watch the news each day to see how bad other people are living, so we can compare our brand of misery to their brand of misery, and then we say ours isn't that bad. We watch the 6 o'clock news, and then we turn right around 4 hours later and watch the 10 o'clock news to see if anything has changed. Well, I can tell you about the news for the rest of your life. Between 6 and 10 o'clock, 2 more people died. So now you don't need to watch. The names and races just changed. That's all. We watch the weather person tell us that all of the bad weather is coming our way. And throughout the United States here lately, some parts of the country have had some bad weather. California is experiencing a drought, while on the East Coast they're in the mountains of snow. So you figure that one out. The weather person will come on TV on Sunday night and tell you there's a 20% chance of rain tomorrow. Why didn't they tell us there was an 80% chance of sun? Rain is not bad. But what if our mind's been conditioned to believe about rain? We look upon a rainy day as one that's gloomy. When we think about it, if rain is coming, a good thing to do is sleep if you can. But with all the sunshine we get, especially down here in Texas, we need rain. Rain feeds all of our lawns and our vegetation. They need it to thrive. But too much rain will kill them. So we have to have some type of balance between the weather as well. So the air needs to be purified, and the rain has to come through and do that as well from time to time. If the weather person knew what they were talking about, why do they come on TV on a Sunday evening, Sunday night, and give you a 7-day forecast? And then they come back tomorrow and give you a new forecast. Think about it. They will come on television Sunday night, tell you the weather for the next 7 days. Then they come back each day thereafter and give you another forecast. If they knew what they were talking about, there will be no use for them the other 6 days. So everyone is conditioning our attitude, and we don't even realize it, because that is what society does. Our subconscious mind receives so much information, and we don't even realize it. We receive it from, our social media. We receive it from our family. We receive it from our school system, be it elementary all the way up to postdoctorate studies. Your mind is being conditioned. We receive it on the job. We receive it with the people we hang with. We receive it from our friends. We receive it when we go to the store and do shopping. We don't even realize how our subconscious mind is being programmed. I remember when I worked in retail for a number of years, we were conditioned to set products a certain way because it was a certain profile that did most of the shopping in the outlets we were working in. So our store sets had to be conducive to the person that was doing the most shopping in that arena. When you have a poor attitude, you tend not to trust others. As I mentioned earlier, our expectations are a reflection of our attitude. Each one of us has several thousand thoughts per day, and over 80% of those thoughts are negative. We have to decide to have a good attitude. Just like we have to decide to make our relationships work. We have to decide to make our economics work. We have to decide to make our spiritual life work. We have to decide to make our health work. We have to decide. And since we have to decide, we might as well make it good. The best way to change our attitudes is to immerse ourselves in positive books and motivational audio. I like listening to Les Brown, John Maxwell, and Tony Robbins is out there, Connie Podesta. Earl Nightingale has a lot of positive speeches on YouTube. Norman Vincent Peale has some positive speeches. There's some audio on Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. If you don't want to read the book, you can listen to it on YouTube. We need these things because we're being attacked in a negative realm on a daily basis. So we need some positive to come into our lives on a regular daily basis. The best thing for us to do is at least get in a positive book 15 to 30 minutes a day. Each one of us has that time. A lot of times it requires us giving up a little bit of TV. But start out. If 15 minutes is too much, start out with 5 minutes. And then graduate to 15 to 30 minutes per day. Listen to, maybe 5 to 10 minutes of audio. I'm not saying you have to get in a full 30 minutes to an hour of positive audio, but get into something to get you in a positive mind frame on a regular basis. When you hear about seminars coming around, get involved in some of those things to help you in your thought process. When your attitude changes for the better, you will start to see doors open that were previously closed to you. It is something about a person headed in a positive direction. It seems that obstacles automatically remove themselves from your path. Things seem to fall in place. Now, do they always fall in place? No, they don't. That's saying we live in a perfect utopia where there's no problems whatsoever, or no obstacles whatever, no challenges whatever. No, life isn't like that. Because if life was like that, then we wouldn't have an appreciation for the accomplishment. People want to assist a person that is going somewhere with the right attitude. They don't want to put that stamp on approval on someone that's going to make them look bad. And most of us are like that. We don't want people to represent us. We don't want people to say, Myron recommended me for this, and then you go in there and do a bad job, because it's not just a reflection on you. It's on that person that referred you as well. More people are laid off of their jobs for bad attitudes and not being able to get along with co-workers than their actual abilities. Now, you will get fired if you don't meet your expectations at a job, but more people get laid off for that very reason. When our attitudes are positive, we wake up happy. We welcome each new day because we expect great things to happen to us. We enjoy meeting people. I know every day I get out, when I can right now, still recovering from some things, but when I can right now, I'm trying to talk and have a conversation with everybody I meet, everybody that wants to have a conversation. We enjoy passing along information to someone else, knowing that we had an opportunity to uplift another, especially if they cannot repay us. My goal each day is to bless somebody. I don't know who it's going to be. A good friend of mine, he's a mentee. He's experiencing some challenges right now, and I came across a sermon by a preacher out of Dallas, and I sent it to him. And I didn't know what impact it was going to have on him, but just based on some situations he was dealing with, I said, hey, I think this will be a great fit for his situation right now. When we have positive attitudes, our language reflects it. You don't hear successful people walking around using foul language all the time. I'm not saying they never use foul language. I'm just saying you won't hear them using that language when doing business. You will not hear them using it in everyday conversation. You will not see a person who has a positive attitude walking around with their pants hanging off their butt, exposing their underwear or their butt crack. You will not see them in the grocery store in their pajamas and house coats. I went to the grocery store the other day, and a woman came out with her house coat on and her pajama bottoms. I mean, is that a person that has a positive attitude or negative attitude? That's a person that has low expectations, has poor self-esteem, and a low self-image. And when you come out your house looking a certain way, it's a reflection of your attitude and how you think and feel about yourself. You will not see people out in public with a cafeteria hat on their head. I see these people all the time. Comb your hair before you leave out the house. Brush your hair before you leave out the house. That's a reflection of your attitude and self-image. When people come out in public like that, we automatically draw a conclusion about that person. Now, this person might be a great person, but our judgment process automatically goes into play and said, this person must not think much about themselves for walking out of their house looking like that. People who come out of the house dressed a certain way, we draw a conclusion. As I mentioned, we believe they have a low self-image. And then the other one is we believe they're lazy because you were too lazy to comb your hair. You were too lazy to press some clothes and come out of your house before you looked that certain way. I remember one time it was late night. I was barbecuing and I needed to run to the grocery store before it closed, and the store closed at 1 a.m. And I went out to the store maybe about 12:30 a.m. And I didn't jump in the shower before I went. I felt like it wouldn't be that many people in the store. Boy, was I wrong. Everybody in the line wanted to know what I was barbecuing. Well, opportunities come to a person with a lazy mindset, poor attitude, or poor self-image. In most cases, the answer is no. I remember being in a store of an account I serviced at the time on this job I was working. I was talking to the manager when a young man came in and filled out an application. This young man had earrings in his ear and his pants hanging down. He filled out the application and the manager told him he would call him in for an interview. He then turned to me and said, "Myron, it is hard to find quality help these days." I turned around in response and told him, I said, "It sure is." I then told him that when I was a manager, that guy would have never gotten my time because of the way he dressed to apply for a job. If you wear earrings, that's your business. But you should show up for a job dressed a certain way. I went to apply for a job as a teenager to make $3.35 an hour. And I went in a shirt, a tie, and slacks. And the person interviewing me was one of my former Little League football coaches. I practically had the job before I went in because I had went to his house to see him one day, and he asked me, was I looking for work? So I practically had the job, but I still represented more than Myron when I went in for that interview, because I had to make an impression on the people that were also already working there. I was setting an example that my parents raised me right. And so we don't realize we reflect more than ourselves when we go out in public. A person that shows up dressed like that is going to be the type of person that will quit the moment they get a decent paycheck. And then they go and blow it on partying. And then they're just going to go look for the next job. These type of people have no respect for themselves. So they won't have respect for you and what you represent. People with low or poor self-images always blame others for their lot in life. They will say that they've been discriminated against because of one reason or another, some ism. No, you sabotaged yourself before you left out of the house. If your attitude is right, you leave out of your house dressed neatly. Your vocabulary will reflect learning. When I read a book, I almost always keep a pen and pad next to me when I read that book. The reason I do that is because I come across words I don't know from time to time. And almost every book you pick up is going to have one or two words in it that you've never seen before. If you don't know the meaning of a word, it makes it hard to understand that sentence and sometimes the whole paragraph. So I write down the word and I look up the definition and I write it down in a tablet for future reference. You can communicate with more people when your vocabulary increases. You know, Muhammad Ali used to say, I am the greatest. That is a person that had an excellent attitude. If we look at chickens and eagles, we hardly ever see an eagle, but we always see a flock of chickens. The reason we don't see eagles is because they travel alone. Chickens never travel alone, unless they're on your plate. The eagle is the greatest bird in the animal kingdom. This bird flies at 40,000 feet in the air. You have to be strong to fly at that altitude. Our relationships, or the lack thereof, will be based on our attitudes. I've always had an attitude that I would always give my best. I was at the University of Houston doing a great time in football history. We had two great running backs at the time. One of the guys was about 230 pounds of nothing but muscle, and he stood about 5'7". He had a low center of gravity, and a lot of guys were scared of tackling him. Our Monday practices were practices set aside for freshmen and those who did not play on the prior Saturday. I was a freshman, so I was at practice. I learned how to make the play at a young age without a lot of technique, because throughout my playing career, a lot of times they classified me as small for the position I played. So I had to use my intellect to make plays, because in most cases I was smaller than the guys I lined up against. This Monday I was making a lot of plays against the other running backs at practice. I knocked a couple of them down because I actually couldn't believe some of these guys were on scholarship. My coach used to always get on me about technique, the lack of it, not that I had it. He told me that at the college level, at the university level in Division I couldn't run over the better backs at that league or at that level. He had offered me a challenge. Size of my opponent never mattered because I had the attitude that I was going to make the play. I had played with great running backs and practiced against them in high school, so this didn't bother me. I played against larger running backs in high school, so that didn't bother me. Coach told me that I couldn't run over one of our backs like that, so I needed to learn technique. The next day at our linebacker and running back drills, I went against the above-mentioned running back. I knocked him flat on his back. As I passed my coach, he pulled me and said, okay, what we're going to do from this point forward is work on a little technique. I had an attitude that no running back would ever get the best of me as long as I put on a set of pads. A good buddy of mine whom I met when I was at the University of Houston was from MacArthur High School. This guy had an attitude that he could whoop anybody he ever met in a fist fight. Something never changed. We were going to a party on campus one night, and another one of our teammates had his cousin visiting. He wanted to show out in front of his cousin, so he started bothering my friend Mud. And Mud was about 200 pounds at the time, and the other guy was about 275 pounds. Mud kept telling him not to bother him because he didn't want to hurt him. You hear that attitude? The other guy just wouldn't leave him alone. And next thing I knew, the other guy was in the air and being slammed to the ground. Mud had the type of attitude that I like to associate with. Back then, he never met a fight that he didn't like. Our attitudes are reflected in our relationships. If you look at your relationships and everyone that you have ever dated has always been the problem, you need to remember this. In all of those relationships, there's only been one common denominator. If you improve your attitude, everything and everyone around you seems to change. Our work environment improves and our relationships improve. When a person with a good attitude gets some bad news or gets down about something, they look for the bright spot. They can get some bad news from the doctor and still move forward and look for the positive. I personally know this feeling after 3 surgeries in the last 2 years. The doctor gave me news that I didn't want to hear, and people wanted to know how I maintain a positive attitude throughout. When I was in the hospital, the staff on my floors each time would stop by my room to get an encouraging word. They told me that a lot of the patients come into the hospital and treat them as if it's their fault that they are there. They even had nurses who were not working the side of the hall I was on to come in just to have a conversation with me because they told me a patient like me was a breath of fresh air. Now, I'm not bragging on myself. I'm just telling you what happens when your attitude's good. Each time I was in the hospital, I had an uplifting, positive book with me. I'm not bragging. I just want to point out that we all like to be around people who inspire us and see life as exciting and not a drag. Life becomes one well worth living when our attitudes are good. People gravitate to you when your attitude is good. People want to know what you know when your attitude is good. We all want to be in the presence of a person with a positive attitude. When we look across the spectrum of those whom we admire, they all had winning attitudes. We look at Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, Tiger Woods, Tom Brady, and Kobe Bryant, and we admire them for their winning attitudes. I mean, Kobe, came back off his injury too early because his whole life has been winning at basketball, and he re-injured himself. I hated to see that. We want to associate with winners. I remember when I played football in high school, the attitude of some of my teammates were indicative of a losing attitude. Our coach would open the weight room during the summer so we could work out in the off season. I watched some of my teammates come in the weight room and do a few reps on the weights, and then they'd go to the gym and play basketball. Were these the type of guys who really wanted to win, or were they more about the entertainment value? And that's part of the problem in life today. We're so wrapped up in the entertainment value. This attitude was reflected throughout our seasons as we only made the playoffs 1 year during my 4-year high school career. And we lost in the first round. The summer leading to my senior year, I went to the store and I bought a set of concrete weights, and I stayed home that summer, and my dad taught me how to properly lift weights. There were no distractions either. I would lift weights 3 to 4 nights a week after I got off work because I did have a summer job. And the nights I didn't lift weights, I would run from my parents' house to the freeway and back, which was about a little bit over 2 miles. I did this the entire summer. And when I reported for tour days in August, I was in the best shape of my life up to that point because I wanted to win. Winners have something in them that sets them apart from others. When I arrived at the University of Houston, those guys were serious about winning, and it reflected in the attitudes. If you messed up, the coach didn't have to say too much to you because your teammates got on you. These guys were serious about winning. It showed in their attitude on the field, and it showed in their attitudes in the weight room. These guys pushed me in the weight room to levels I didn't even believe had been imaginable to myself up to that point. At one point during that season, we were ranked number 8 in the national poll. Those guys challenged me to do better each day. As a whole, the team had a winning attitude, which was contrary to the behaviors of a lot of my high school teammates. I don't fault them, because at that age, a lot of us want to do what is fun. In my book, and my mentor says this all the time as well, fun is when you're winning. I've never had a smile on my face when I lost to somebody. I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I've never had a smile on my face when I lost. I remember my senior year in woodshop, I made a grandfather clock, and at the state competition, there was another competition outside of the state competition, and that was the national competition. And in order to get to the national competition, your project had to be considered the best in the division. Not only a first place, but you had to get first place and best in division. So you could still get a first place, but somebody else could get first place and best in division, and their project would advance to the state competition. And I got a first place for my grandfather clock, but another gentleman from another part of Texas, he got the first place and the best in division. And that first place was insignificant to me. And it was years later, I talked to my woodshop teacher, and he told me the young man that I competed against did not build his clock from scratch. He used a kit, like this prefabricated homes, and everything is already pieced out, and you just put it together. Whereas I built mine from scratch and had to cut all my pieces, but I told him that didn't matter to me because I still lost because I wanted to win. So when I go back to my high school teammates, I don't place a lot of blame on them, because the winning attitude has to be cultivated in more than just on the football field. It has to be cultivated in our home and in our regular daily environments too. But I do place a lot of the blame on our coach, because he never should have allowed the gym to be open for recreation, because our attitude should have been on football business and football business only. The environment was not properly set for winning by our leader. Why not give yourself a chance and approach each day with a joyful, happy, and uplifting attitude? Do this for 21 days, because that's how long it takes to develop a new habit. After 21 days, if you don't like the new you, just go back to your old self. The only problem then is everyone around you won't appreciate you going back to the old you.